Hello again, everyone. Dr. Dave here. We're getting into chapter 13 this time. Always forget the chapter numbers. And it's all about what a lot of you figure psychology is all about, mental health issues and their different symptoms. So first we need to start with what it means to be abnormal. And there are three main definitions of this. The first is a statistical one. If you do something that most people don't do, if you like something most people don't like, if you believe something most people don't believe, or just the opposite, everyone believes it but you don't, statistically you are abnormal. So if you eat a lot of grapefruit, that could be statistically abnormal. Or if you're a really fast runner, that could be also. Second definition is basically that it's maladaptive. It's something that gets in the way of productive, healthy functioning. So if you bite your nails to the point where you get infections, that's maladaptive. If your procrastination causes you problems in school, if your alcoholism causes you problems, it's maladaptive. And the other definition is subjective discomfort. If there's something about yourself that you don't really like or feel comfortable with, if you don't like the fact, for example, that you're really tall or really short, if you're uncomfortable with the fact that you are a nail biter or that you have a gambling problem. That was the third definition. So the more of those three definitions that you line up with, the more extreme they are, the more likely it is you have a psychological problem. But it wasn't until about 70, 80 years ago that some of the world's leading psychologists got together and created something called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's called the DSM. It's on the 5th edition now, DSM-5. The DSM-5 lists all kinds of psychological disorders and their symptoms. It's not meant for you folks to use. It's meant to be used by a professional for making a diagnosis. And in one of the links, you should be able to find a way to access that information. It's a pretty impressive, big, thick book with a lot of info. So one of the issues with this chapter is that as you start reading about different psychological problems, you may fear that you have them. It's not always the case. There's tons of disorders out there. We're not going to get to all of them, just some of the ones that are maybe more common, more misunderstood, more interesting. And I want to start by talking about a couple of mood or affective disorders. One of them is clinical or major depression, and this is where the person has an inability to experience joy. Nothing in their life really brings them pleasure or meaning. It's a fairly common disorder. There's different types of it, like postpartum, after delivering a baby, seasonal affective disorder, where basically you deal with a full-on depression each winter. And then there's a lot of different symptoms with it, right? You can't enjoy life. You may have difficulties eating. You may eat a lot. You may be unable to sleep. You may be sleeping a lot. You may turn your thoughts to suicide, potentially. You don't have to have all the symptoms to be diagnosed. Another fairly common mood disorder is called bipolar. Bi means two, poles are opposites. These are people who have those depressive episodes like we just talked about, as well as periods of mania where their thoughts are racing, they've got tons of energy, they want to accomplish a whole lot, they may be talking very fast, they may be staying up for a day or two on end because there are all these things that they want to accomplish during these times. The goal is to help these folks level out. Usually the manic episodes last for maybe a half day to sometimes 2 or 3 days. The depressive episodes typically follow, and they last about 3 to 4 times as long as the manic episodes. They may also have some normal periods there too. Drugs like lithium can help level people out, but a lot of folks with bipolar don't want to take their meds because they kind of like those high manic times when they're accomplishing a lot. And when they're medicated, the world kind of feels more blah, if you will. They're not used to that. With depression, you can take antidepressants to help you get back up to normal. And in the case of either of those disorders, therapy, as we'll talk about in the next chapter, can be very beneficial. Hope this helped you understand the DSM and abnormality and some of the two major mood disorders.